All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to another Avid Live Sound webinar. Tonight or today, whatever time it is where you are, we are going to be discussing streaming audio for live sound. So I'm going to come at it from the angle of talking about how do we set up our consoles, how do we set up our systems, maybe our installation to best serve our streaming needs, because as everybody understands, right, streaming is going to be with us a while now, and there are tons of different ways to do it, especially for streaming music, along with video content, etc. We're going to be focused primarily on music today. How do I handle my music and get it packaged up and ready to stream it out the door so that we can share it with the rest of the world? Okay, so let's kind of get it going here. Let's see, here we go. Right, so we're going to consider this live to air streaming, right? And we're going to talk about three different kind of scenarios and system designs that can accommodate streaming very easily. Some of them having varying degrees of difficulty, some having varying degrees of staff demands, etc. So, you know, whether you're a church, whether you're out on tour, whether you're a nightclub, etc., all of these or any of these can fit into your workflows there, just depending on how you want to go about handling it. And they can provide different qualities, different capabilities, different comprehensiveness of stream. Okay. So one of them that we're going to talk about, we'll start off with talking about an augmented front of house mix for LTA stream. So an augmented front of house mix means it's just our normal front of house mix that we're sending to the PA. But we're going to add audience mics, maybe ambience mics, and package it dynamically and get it ready for stream. So it's going to be a situation where we're going to have one person doing two jobs essentially. And then of course we're going to go to a little more broken down version of that, where we're going to package up some stems and send it to another mixer and get it ready to go for streams as well. And that can be done both ways. That can be done by the front of house person, or we can incorporate a second person there to do that. So that would obviously require a second console to be able to handle the reblend of our stems, right? So we'll go over that guy. And then, if I can get my PowerPoint to play along here, we're going to do front of house capture full mix to broadcast, where we have a live to air component, and then we also have the ability to come back and remix that for on-demand listening, right? So that's an entirely different system design, obviously a lot more comprehensive technically than it was. All right. Wow, my PowerPoint is really slow here. I may have to stop my screen share and redo it. So I'm just going to alert you to that. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that real quick here. Sorry, guys. I'm going to stop my screen share for a second and just restart it and see if this goes a little better. All right, so stand by for me, please. Let's try this and see if this helps a little bit. Sometimes we get a little gunked up. All right, so here we're going to take a look at our augmented front of house mix. So in this situation, as you can see in the diagram, we're going to have a PA system drive that's going to take place from the console. We're going to have all the stage inputs come into that console. We are most likely going to multi-track record it. You know, we're going to do that with our Pro Tools system or whatever we have there. And then we're going to add to that. That's really slow. We're going to have to just kind of muscle through this, I think. So we're going to create a left-right mix, and we're going to add audience and ambience to it, and we're going to send that out to a computer that is set up to do streaming, right? So we're going to stream it out to an audience, and from that computer you could stream just like we're doing today to any number of streaming services. As you can see, I got all kinds of them bunched up on that computer, and we can do that. Now, we'll go through the challenges of this. Because we're asking a lot of this front of house engineer to be able to do this, and there are certain situations where this becomes impractical and I dare I say almost impossible. Right? But this is the simplest form. This is the one we can do the quickest For guys that have been out on tour and doing shows, or people that have been doing shows for a long time, that have been printing their mixes to whatever recording device they want to do, whether it was to CD or it was back to hard drive, whatever they wanted to do. This has been kind of preparing you for this for a long time. I've been promoting this kind of mindset for many, many years now, honestly for decades now, of people, trying to kind of get across the idea that if your mix sounds great coming off of the console, it will sound great coming out of the PA system. There's no PA system that's going to make a bad mix sound better than a great mix. So, the better you can get that mix happening off the console, the more you can do with it. And now here we are at a time where we need to take those mixes and do something with them. We want to send them out for streaming. So we're going to package them up and get them ready to go. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to shut something down here just to see if this is negatively impacting it. All right, so let's talk about the logistics of augmented front of house mix being streamed. All right, so obviously it is the most cost and labor efficient because you haven't had to hire more people to do it. You've used just pretty simple technology in the previous diagram. Really all we had to do was get the left-right out to an audio interface to our computer. And in the days of network now, we might even be able to just do that with networking, right? We might be able to get it to a computer via Dante or by AVB, whatever we want to do, and to get it over there. We might not even need an additional audio interface to get it to that computer. So this is clearly the most efficient way to do it. The question is going to be, is it going to be the best quality, right? Now, what this is going to require, without doubt, is the most highly skilled mixer that you have, right? It's going to be somebody that's going to not only have to do a really good high quality mix for the PA system, but have a mix that will also translate to being listened to on ear pods and all kinds of other stuff, right? We're gonna listen to it across the stream. So that mix has got to work in both places. So it does require some skill to be able to do that. You wouldn't want to hand that off to somebody that's not that skilled of a mixer. It is going to divide their focus, unquestionably. They're going to be focused on the show for a little bit. They are going to focus on the stream a little bit, and if they were really doing it comprehensively, they're going to be doing audience moves to the stream. Obviously, those audience mics and that ambience mics are not going to be added to the PA system, yet they're going to be mixing it to the stream. So, like I say, their attention is divided between those two things. Let's talk about the technical aspects, the workflow aspects of it, right? It does require a discrete output from your console to be able to do it. This is typically done with a matrix. Luckily, in the day of digital consoles that we have before us now, there are lots of output capabilities. There's lots of busing capabilities. There's even lots of processing capabilities on the consoles to allow us to do this kind of thing. So it's going to require an output on the console where we can combine our left-right mix or our mono mix, whatever we're using, and then add that with audience mics and ambience mics. As I mentioned earlier, technically it's just going to require a simple audio interface, or maybe even no audio interface at all, where we can connect by a network directly from our console to the computer that is going to be used to dictate the stream or deliver the stream. Now, probably the biggest challenge in doing this augmented front of house mix is the ability to monitor what's happening on the stream, right? A typical front of house guy who's mixing for a show has a lot going on mentally to manage for the show. And it's very difficult to get into an environment where you can actually monitor not only the sound quality of what you're sending to the stream, but listen to it on the backside of the stream. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of latency involved there. And if you wanted to listen to it in the venue with the PA going on, that's actually a really challenging thing to do to get some sense of the quality. Also, he's not really paying attention for the most part to the actual quality of the connection, the quality of the encoding, etc. there, so it's a very tough environment. You're doing a lot of stuff on faith with this particular setup. Now, I don't want to lead you to believe it can't be done. It can be done. We have seen lots of this going on in the world today, and some of it very high quality. So it can be done, just requires somebody with some split focus and somebody very skilled at doing this. All right. The other challenge, or the other environment in sound reinforcement that can be very challenging here to do this kind of augmented mix is if you're in a situation where you're doing pure sound reinforcement, right? Where you might not necessarily have all of the instrumentation coming out of the PA or included in your mix to come out of the PA. You may just be reinforcing a small stage or something with those inputs. So in that situation, you wouldn't necessarily want to stream that mix minus, that's in the room, where you might not have very much guitar or you might not have very much drums in the actual mix because of the volume in the small place, right? So you got to be very careful there. You can still do the augmented mix if you want to do it where you add those elements only to the stream, but again, it becomes harder and harder to monitor it and keep track of it over the course of the show, right? So that's probably one of the most challenging aspects of this augmented front of house is if you're in a situation where you're doing sound reinforcement, right? All right, so for our next one, we're going to talk about using front of house stems. And of course, by stems, this is a term that we've, adopted from the recording community now, where we're going to, use families of instruments and send them out as groups to be reblended and kind of optimized for streaming, right? So from our console, we're going to send out a number of groups. And like I said, this is going to be families of instruments. So it might be drums, fully processed drums, meaning dynamically processed, affected, etc., in order to be able to do that. Sorry, I got one other thing I got to take care of here. So, this is going to require that you have the ability to set up multiple groups depending on how many instruments, etc., that you have on your console, how many families of instruments, meaning do I want to send out, if I have 3 guitar players, do I want to send out one guitar group that has all those 3 guitar players, or do I want to send out each guitar player's package to the external mixer to be reblended and maybe even tonally adjusted, etc.? Now, the cool thing about doing this as stems that are going to go be reblended is that you, as the front of house engineer, those stems are still going to carry all your moves, right? So if you're making delay moves or you're making reverb moves or solo moves for guitars, all of those are going to be included in those stems. So all of that other mixer has to do is just rebalance it and kind of optimize it for the stream, right? We might have a situation where we have a little more bass guitar in the stream versus what we had in the house. Things like that, where low frequency might be a problem in the house and we've had to adjust for it. Now, this can be done with a second person, or the front of house mixer might just reblend his stems and optimize those for the stream, right? Just to get a little better balance going to the stream, but it can go either way. So in that situation, we're going to mix out to another computer via the small mixer this time, and then obviously stream that on out. We can take that on out to as many streams as we want to do it, okay? So this is actually really effective. I think this is a really good one because it allows you to actually incorporate a second person if you want to do it that can be farther away. They can be out of the arena or in a more controlled environment where they can hear better, etc., and really get some good work done here for the stream, right? So let's take a look at kind of the pluses and minuses for this guy, all right? So this one is kind of nice because we can do that reblend with some relatively inexpensive technology, right? We can do that with a simple mixer, be it digital or analog. We can do that any one of those mixers as long as we can get the signals to that mixer. We have multi-channel USB mixers are very common now, so we could take our audio into these mixers and then connect the USB to the computer, the streaming computer, and be able to build a mix that goes right out there. There are lots of options for this now in the world, very cost-effective options for it. As I mentioned earlier, it allows music and vocals to kind of be rebalanced and optimized again for the stream, where we might overbalance some of these things in the actual live sound environment to allow, kind of provide for the concert setting. This still demands a really highly skilled mixer at front of house. You want somebody that is going to be creating good sounding stems, going to have, really good, relevant, solid moves within those stems. to give the external mixer the best chance of success to build for the stream. This, as I mentioned, this can require a second person. It would want to be a person that has some ears, that would be able to address music and put it back together, so to speak, for the stream. So you want somebody that has an audio background there would be preferable. But it's not absolutely demanded, but I think you would be well suited to be able to do that. It can require the second isolated environment, whether this is in your video post room or wherever it might be. Ideally you would want to get this in a second location in the building that is out of the concert environment, so they can make some good decisions on the balances of that music, the tonality of those stems, etc., and get them sounding really good for the stream. So more often than not, you would want it to be more of a control room environment. I have seen situations in arenas where somebody is sending stems back to a dressing room and somebody's doing it on headphones or whatever is going to be there, and doing that very effectively as well. But the idea there is to get some isolation where you can make some good decisions. The technical and the workflow portion of this, it does require discrete group outputs from your console. So if you're not used to mixing in a group setting on your console, maybe in the past you've just done everything assigned to the left, right, and then used VCAs to do some of your grouping, etc., it would require you to break away from that a little bit and actually create some audio groups that you can send out and get those reblended for your stream. So just keep that in mind. It might alter your workflow a little bit. If you've watched any of my past webinars on gain structure, etc., I encourage you to go back and look at those, because working within audio groups, especially in today's digital consoles, can really help you get your gain structure optimized, and then you turn right around and you're actually set up to do streaming and stem mixing very easily on your console, right? There's usually plenty of outputs available to you on your consoles to be able to do this, and plenty of grouping today to do it. As I said in the previous one, we can accommodate networked audio to the streamed audio, to the stream audio mixer. So we can, we have plenty of transport capabilities now, as opposed to having to run copper everywhere. Plenty of capabilities to do that. Really one of the bigger advantages, I think this is probably the primary advantage to doing streamed stem mixes, or reblended stem mixes for the stream, is that you can have somebody who's singularly focused on the audio, right? Even if they're just repackaging the audio and sending it on to video to be added with video, at least you have somebody that's really focused on the audio. If you're just streaming audio, then that person can also be really focused on the stream itself. Have we got a good connection? Is the downstream working? Can I listen to it after stream and monitor it to make sure everything is going okay? So, that you can have that person that's really focused on the event that's going on. This is also challenging in a sound reinforcement setting. Again, even if we're in stem mixing, if I don't have all of those inputs included in those mixes, it can still be pretty challenging. But this kind of workflow where we're remixing stems can kind of get you out of jail a little bit with this, because the person mixing front of house could build guitar groups that may not be in the PA, but can be sent on to the stems mixer to be reblended and re-put back together. Now, he could even do solo moves on the console, even if he's not hearing him in the PA, with the faith that, okay, yes, that solo move is happening to the stream. I know what's happening there. Takes a little faith, takes a little practice to do it, but that can be done. All right, let's move on to our third scenario here, and this is probably the most comprehensive and most capable of this scenarios. And I actually designed lots of systems like this for a lot of performing arts centers, a lot of churches, etc., that are doing this very thing. So once again, we have our console, we have our inputs coming into the console, we have our drive system set up for the PA system. We've even got multi-track record set up here for virtual sound check within the arena. But then we're going to add some additional capability to it. We're going to add a second Pro Tools system that is also doing multi-track record capture. We can do this very simply on S6L now. It's just literally 2 Cat5 cables out to 2 computers, and you can record up to 128 tracks playback and record on both computers with just simple AVB connection. So this actually works really great in this scenario. In this situation, we're going to mix completely in the box. So we're going to take and use a mixer like an S4 or an S6, even a series of S1s could do this, where you're going to build a control room environment and you're going to use that console to mix within the Pro Tools computer that has audio being captured by the live sound console. So the live sound console is going to do the A to D conversion. It's going to provide audio to that Pro Tools system, and then that S4 mixer or S6 mixer is going to use all of his processing that he wants to use inside that computer and create a mix that is going to get delivered actually out of that Pro Tools system and exit the S6L before being delivered to the stream. Okay, so there's great ability here, right? We're going to create a mix bus within Pro Tools. We're going to deliver it back to the front of house mixer. He can actually monitor what's going on there if he wanted to do it, and actually do something to this stream before it heads to the streaming computer, right? So we're creating a little bit of loop here. The reason we have to kind of do it this way is because the Pro Tools system that is connected to that S4 is the audio interface, right? So we're going to actually mix within Pro Tools and then just access 2 channels in the S6L and deliver it back to the streaming computer. And then, of course, from there, we can take it on out. Now, the beauty of this is we can use this in the live setting, right? We can do this live to air, where that S4 is actually creating a Pro Tools mix live to air. And then when he's done, if you want to go back and touch up that mix, you want to go back and remix, you want to go back maybe and fix some mistakes, etc., you can go back and do that against runtime automation and reblend that, remix it completely if you needed to do it for on-demand mixing at a later date. So you could have a live version, then you could have a remixed version, very simply doing that here, right? So let's take a look at some of the positives and negatives of this. So obviously the biggest positive here is that it offers absolutely the most flexibility and post-event options. We have the most capability after the event is done to do other things with this audio. It does require the most comprehensive infrastructure and technology, though. We're adding another full-blown console mixing system to the system and another Pro Tools system. So this does require the most capability, and you would really want to put this in a good control room to be able to do this very, very much like you would see in an actual broadcast facility or a recording studio facility. It requires a highly skilled mixer for the on-air portion, for sure. Somebody needs to know how to mix on-air, live to air within that Pro Tools system, kind of in the box mixing, but they also need to be capable in remixing for on-demand too. So they really kind of have to have a pretty wide skill set to be able to do that. And that can be challenging to do within Pro Tools to handle on-the-air stuff, but it's done every day. It's used all over the world for that very function. So I assure you it can be done. There are lots of ways of doing it. As I mentioned, it does require an isolated monitoring environment. You would definitely want to put this into a control room or a controlled situation and get it out of that concert environment to do this. You're going to get the most bang for your buck by doing that. And then in terms of the technical, this is where it accommodates networked multi-track audio to both locations, right? For the virtual sound check in the main room, but also to the streaming location. He's going to get multi-track audio there and be able to mix it completely before sending it out to the stream. Also, as I mentioned earlier, it allows for some easy overdub capabilities. If you needed to go in and post and repair something, maybe a missed guitar part, a missed keyboard part, maybe even redo a little bit of a vocal performance to get it a little better for your on-demand stream, you could certainly go in and do that very easily. The places that I've seen do this the most in performing arts centers and churches, they actually make this part of their studio in the church, where they will work with their worship teams or their musicians to actually do recordings. So it's just as simple as them coming in the room and doing it. They could even do this, if it's a fixed facility, they could do it from the stage right where they originally recorded it and set up to do it there. So it's, like I said, there's a lot of capability here once you have it in play. As I've been kind of intonating here, this provides for an on-air mix as well as on-demand post-event. And of course, this really provides for complete focus on the broadcast portion of it, not only in terms of audio, but in terms of the streaming quality, etc. If you're going to set it up to this comprehensive of a level in your control room, yeah, you would want complete monitoring capability, pre and post stream, etc. You'd want to be able to monitor all aspects of that stream, just like the big boys do it in broadcast, right? All right, so with that said, let's talk a little bit about metering and broadcast levels. This is a really, really hot topic kind of going today. And, we've kind of had to get used to some new language. A lot of movement has been going on in this area in broadcast for a long time. And now music has kind of entered this scene. And that is all about LUFS, right? What level should I be mixing? What LUFS level should I be mixing at? So LUFS stands for loudness units referenced at full scale, right? That's all this is. This is a new metering environment that we have here, and it was kind of developed for the film and broadcast industry and the TV industry to help offset this problem of having really loud commercials against the actual content that they're showing in the broadcast. It was meant as a way to get a metering standard that would help us level those things out, because you could have content and commercials actually metering traditionally at kind of the same level, but yet given the amount of compression and limiting that was used in the commercial, it would come across as way, way louder. So this was meant as a means to offset that. So let's take a look at some of the standards, the standard LUFS levels that we would see for these different scenarios, right? So for television, typically they're mixing at minus 24 LUFS, and they might even break it apart in terms of content versus vocal to different LUFS levels, but on whole, it's generally set at about minus 24. For gaming, minus 16. For podcast, the generally accepted level is about minus 16. And for music, 0.1 dBFS music. Yes. Yes, as I say there, you read that correctly. And really what you need to discern from that is there is no standard set for music mixing in LUFS right now. Okay, so it's the wild, wild west right now for LUFS. And to make it even tougher, many of the streaming services actually deploy different LUFS standards for their services. So this is just an example of a few of these. And you can kind of see where the confusion starts to happen, right? So these different entities are doing these, presenting these different LUFS levels to their listening audience. Okay, so it begs the question, well, what do we do with music then? I mean, if there isn't a standard for it, what should we do? How should we package our LUFS levels for our music once we mix it? And, the question one of the questions we have to answer first before we get into the actual level is, where should I be addressing this, right? So should I be addressing it dynamically? Should I be metering it? Where should I be doing that? So it's always going to be at the main output that is feeding your stream, right? So if that's coming from your live sound console, if you're using a matrix output there, you would want to monitor this at that matrix output. And if you're going to deal with it dynamically, you would want to do it there. You don't want to be addressing these LUFS levels going to the PA system or right across your left-right bus, right? You're going to use that at the last position before it heads out to the stream. So make sure you're doing that. If you've got that second mixer involved now, where we're doing stem mixing, then you're going to want to do it at the output of that mixer, right? That's where you're going to want to deal with the LUFS level and get some metering in place there so you can see what you're doing and see what you're delivering to the streaming services, right? You want to get some sense of it. So the question becomes, what if I want to feed more than one stream? What if I want to feed to these different levels, or I shouldn't say these different levels, to these different streaming services? You saw all the different LUFS levels that are going on there. Does that mean I need to set up a different output on my console for every one of these streaming services that I want to address? And I'm going to tell you no. I'm going to say at this point, honestly, don't worry about it other than setting a single primary LUFS target. That's what I'm going to encourage you guys to do. because here's the deal. They're just going to deal with it anyway. Regardless of what you send to them, they're going to implement and optimize it for their LUF settings before they broadcast it out. So don't feel the need to overly compress and overly limit to hit some really strict LUFS target on all of these outputs. From everything I've been gathering from other music mixers, et cetera, that are generating music for this, they're generally aiming for anywhere from -12 to -9 coming off the console, and that can be kind of open. Like I said, don't feel like you have to really crunch down your music to get it to fit into there. That's really just what you want to aim for, and try to get it sitting right around there, and then deliver it to the streaming service and let them deal with it. I think the mistake that I keep hearing being made a lot is everybody will try to hit some really strict target, and they'll really dynamically compress and limit their music to try to get it to fit into a very small window, and then Spotify or YouTube or whatever takes it and does the same thing to it to get it to fit into their target. All right, so don't feel too demanded to really get it to fit into that small window. Just shoot for somewhere between -9 and -12 for your music and let it go there. Okay, that's my suggestion to you at this point until they set some sort of LUF standard for music. There are various kinds of meters to be used. I use an external meter here to do my work. I use one of the Clarity M's, but we're on digital consoles now. There's all kinds of LUFS metering to be had there. There's even LUFS metering within dynamic processors and brick wall limiters that we use on the consoles, so you can get those looks anytime you want to do it. Matter of fact, I got a camera set up where you can kind of see my LUFS meter here. I don't have this set up to get this music to the stream, unfortunately, but I can at least let you see the meter. So that's my Clarity. Let's see if I can get it up here. Yeah, there we go. So you can kind of just get a sense of what's happening music-wise there, and get some sense of your LUFS levels. You can just go for a target here. You'll get some sense of the loudness range, the peak levels, true peak max, all of those kind of things, program loudness, and get some levels set and package that stuff up for your stream. So like I said, if you're doing this from a matrix on your console, you might want to put a good limiter across that, maybe just a little bit of peak limiting to try to get yourself in a good window there, and adjust the output of that limiter to get it up to whatever LUFS level you're targeting before you pass it on to the stream. Okay, but kind of as I mentioned, I don't really want to get you overthinking this. I think a lot of guys are really over dealing with this because the streaming services are going to be so strong with it anyway. So don't sweat it is my word. Just try to hit a good target between -9 and -12, and get it out there and get it sounding good. Okay. All right. So I hope very much so that you got some good stuff out of this. We're going to take some time and answer some questions. Hopefully I'll be able to answer them for you. And so hopefully my friends in the background there, my marketing buddies from Avid, have been in the background collecting some questions, and we'll be able to answer them up for you. Guys, have you got anything going on in the background there that we can answer up?
Just got one from Zoom at the moment, which is in regards to currently running a profile in one hall and an SC48 in the other. Is there a way to set up such that one is mixing for stream and while the other one during the live event?
Are you there?
Hello, can you hear us?
Okay, well, I guess if nobody is there, we have no questions. I cannot. Oh, hang on. I have you turned down here. I'm sorry. That is totally my mistake. Thanks for pulling it to me in the chat there. Thank you guys. Sorry about that. We'll have to
hey,
edit
Rob.
that out.
Sorry, I did say on the chat we had 2 questions in Zoom here.
Yeah. It's a live show. We just had our first mistake. I'll take that one.
Hey, it happens.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Drew. Thank you, man. Sorry.
No, you're all right, mate. We've got someone who says they're currently running a profile in a hall and an SC48 in another. Is there a way to set up such that one is mixing for the live stream during the live event?
Well, it depends on how you want to do that. You could certainly do it. I mean, you could certainly just take those and put them on a standard splitter, right? And just have all inputs coming into the SC48, all inputs coming into the profile. One of them is dedicated to stream. One of them is dedicated to the live show. If I understand what you're doing or you're saying there, right? Is that what they're asking?
I would say so. I think they've got two consoles and they want to be able to use one for a live event and one for stream. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could do it a number of different ways there. I mean, you could incorporate, honestly, with that, any one of those scenarios that I just talked about, probably short of, that SC, if you were going to use the SC48 in the broadcast area or the streaming area, you wouldn't be able to get full multi-track there, right? Because SC48, I think, only supports 32 tracks for recording, right? But you could do, if you did it on a splitter, then you could do the same amount of inputs, probably up to 48 inputs on the SC48 that you're doing on the profile, or you could have the profile generate stems, send those to the SC48 and have it remix with audience and ambience and present it to the stream. Absolutely, you could do all of that sort of thing there.
Fantastic.
You could even do a Dante card in the SC48 and a Dante card in the profile and transport, stems or mixes, whatever you wanted via Dante to that external room, right? So create a little mini network that is just transport of stems or left-right audio.
Fantastic, great. Yeah, and I guess that comment about the Dante might help with this second question that's that same person had, was they're considering adding an S6L to the system to integrate into the site, and can there be an interlink? Between obviously those consoles, I would say. Yeah.
Well, if it's a pair of S6Ls, you have countless options there right now. I mean, you could, honestly, like I said, you could have those S6Ls shared, meaning they could both get the same inputs, they can both record. You could set up AVB Milan networks between those two consoles so that one console can send post fade to the other console if you need it. Any number up to 128 channels in AVB Milan. So yeah, if you have a pair of S6Ls in play there, yeah, you are living large and could do a lot of stuff there. Hopefully that answers what they're talking about. Whoever asked the question, if you want me to detail more of that, please just address your question in more detail in the chat, and we'll address it here. So happy to do it. Okay. Anything else, Drew? Anybody else got any questions there?
Sorry. So just checking the other socials. Give me 1 second. I'm just seeing.
Yeah, that's all right. No
the other
worries.
team
I got nowhere to go.
Hello. Yeah, I did have a question here from in YouTube. Let me just make sure I'm looking at the comment properly here. Can you build a system that ignores solos while live streaming? Now, obviously, S6L has some pretty well thought out soloing workflow, so I just wondered if you could just go over that for just a second for the user who's asking from YouTube.
Yeah, so obviously in live sound consoles we have a lot of different solo capabilities. So as long as that console is not in solo in place, any solo they do will not disrupt that mix that is going to the stream. Right? You would never want to take your control room out to the stream. You would always want to have a dedicated left, right, or mono mix that is going to go to it, and solo will not disrupt that unless it's in solo in place. If you're mixing inside the box in Pro Tools, then again you need to kind of set it up where it's non-destructive solo in there, where you can have a solo environment built there and use it just like a control room that you would use in a broadcast, and be able to solo and work inside the box without disrupting your master bus there. So that needs to be non-destructive solo. But yes, you can absolutely do that.
And I've got a question from Chris from Facebook. Chris Braun, how you going, mate? He was asking in regards to obviously the getting your LUFS target range right. He's saying, would it be better to accurately get your LUFS into a relative target range so the given streaming services algorithm has less to do with your mix than just smashing it one way or the other?
Well, it's a tough question to answer, but I'm going to stick to what I said. I think I would rather see you err on the side of having a more dynamic range in your mix, and then letting the streaming service do what it's going to do anyway, as opposed to really limiting it and then sending it on. They're gonna hit their LUFS target regardless of what you send them, right? So. That's kind of where I stand on it today. I'll reserve the right to maybe change that opinion over time as I do more and more of this, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. So don't, I would say resist the urge to be really heavy-handed. It's almost like, well, if I master my recording really, really well, my mastering engineer won't need to do anything with it. There is a little bit of that mentality in there, but the thing you have to understand is if I master my record perfectly, in this situation, the mastering engineer is then going to do what he normally does anyway, right? It's not like you're going to be sitting with him there deciding, right? So you're almost better off just saying, okay, I'm going to trust the mastering engineer to do what he normally does, but I'm going to send him a pretty dynamic, high dynamic range mix here and let him do his thing. You see what I'm saying there? It's kind of nuanced there, but that really is kind of the mentality that's going on right now with streaming.
I'll jump in quickly with another one from YouTube, and I guess Drew will come back to some in Zoom. Just a suggestion or bit of feedback. Would love to see some sort of loudness metering in the console, but I guess I'll let you answer. There's probably the possibility of the some available plugins that may be able to do that for us. I think the Pro Limiter from Avid, for example, has some metering functionality, but I'll let you answer further.
Yeah, actually, I'll try to show it here. I was kind of remotely going into the desk here to show the Pro Limiter, and that's what was slowing down my PowerPoint. I think it was using up my HDMI resources on my computer, but I'll try to do it here again real quick. Stand by. Now that the pressure's kind of off. Yeah, here we go. All right, just hang in there with me 1 second. Let's see here. So I'm going to share this guy. So you should be able to see the Pro Limiter by Avid on the screen there. Is that coming up for everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So as you can see here, I'll just run up some volume into this just so you can see it. So there is LUFS readings on this limiter. I actually use this all the time. This is probably my go-to limiter, even across my mix bus for the PA system, but it definitely, if I'm putting together a bus for streaming, I'll almost always use this limiter. I just love it. I love the way it sounds. I love the way it sets up. I use it all the time. Now, that said, there are lots of different limiters like this out here. I mean, it seems like everybody's making a LUFS meter now in conjunction with some sort of limiter because, there's so much demand for it now. So it is out there. We do have them on the console. We don't really build LUFS metering into the actual console itself. It's not that we couldn't do that at some point. We could certainly offer that option and a preference at some point if the demand is there. But right now we can just solve the problem too easily with plug-in. So we just go there with it. Okay. Drew, you got another one for me, man?
I've got a couple coming in now. It was a little quiet to start with, but now they're coming in thick. So we've got Nicholas asking. Actually, this is more of an opinion, I guess. Any suggestions for audience miking, particularly to get good coverage of audience sing-alongs and so forth?
Yeah. I mean, this is a topic we could probably do an entire webinar on, so no kidding. It's really all about, I mean, I hate to do it this way, but it's about putting up well-placed and numerous microphones in order to be able to do it. And, really the skill is being able to put up microphones with a particular coverage pattern to help keep down the PA system in the audience mics. It's like, I want to hear the audience, but I don't want to hear the PA, right? That's kind of the goal. You're never going to get it where it's completely isolated, right? Where you only hear audience. But keep in mind distance there, right? The closer I get the mics to the audience, the closer I'm going to hear individuals. The farther I have the mic from the audience, the more I'm going to hear the crowd, right? So it's really all of these little metrics that go into place to do it. But I think the best results I've had with it are placing relatively directional microphones on the stage or at the stage height and behind the PA system, right? And then you're going to have to high pass filter them because you're going to have probably a lot of sub energy, et cetera, around those areas. But high pass them up, 200, 300, 400 hertz. Don't be scared to go up that high if you need to do it. And that way it'll keep kind of all the high frequency information out of the microphones, but yet you'll hear crowd, right? Now you got to be careful with backline. You don't want to put it right in front of guitar amps, et cetera. So remember, whatever you can hear with your ears is what that microphone is going to hear, right? Microphones are dumb. They hear exactly what you hear at the same time, right? So use your ears, walk around during the performance, maybe during a sound check, maybe during a performance to kind of get some idea of where you need to place mics and put them out there. Now, here's the other piece of it that I'm going to guard you against, and this is something we could do an entire webinar on for sure, is pay very close attention to your spacing on those microphones. And when I say spacing, I mean not only the distance between them, but also the distance to all the sources. So if there is PA bleed coming into a microphone that is underneath the PA, let's say that microphone is sitting at 13 feet high. Well, whatever you do, when you place the microphone on the other side of the room, make sure it's to the inch 13 feet high. Because at some point, those microphones are probably going to get combined together. And the more coherent the bleed is into those microphones, the more you'll be able to use it in your mix. Okay, so this is truly, even though I see guys just throwing up microphones all the time to try to keep ambient or gather audience and ambience, man, it's detail work. Pay attention to those distances, because what'll end up happening if you don't is you'll get to the point where you're mixing it and you'll start to add in those audience mics, and you're going to get so much smear if they're not coherent, it's just going to make you push them back down. You just think, oh, it's messing with my mix too much, I can't push it up. If you can get them coherent on their own, where the bleed is coming in at the same time, you'll be able to use a lot more of it in the mix. Just to give you kind of a reality story on it, for the past, I don't know how many years now, 15 years at least, when I'm out on shows gathering and capturing audience and ambience, I time align all of those mics. And I post it in the session. Like if I have a recording session, I'll use an FFT analyzer like Smart, plug in that microphone to Smart, measure noise from the PA to the microphone, and in the session is information on exactly where that mic is sitting and exactly how far it is from the PA system. So, all of that detail work is in play if people want to use it in post, and it can make a huge difference on how much actual audience and ambience you can use against your dry mix. So I guess my piece of advice to you is experiment, but be detailed with it. Don't just throw them up and think we got to do it. There's nothing wrong with trying to, if you're in a fixed installation, to try to hang mics over the audience and get it down. Just, use cardioid mics probably more than not. And depending on where you hang them, if it's off to the sides of the PA, then try to use hypercardioid mics. If it's directly in front of the PA, use cardioid mics and try to get that pattern control to work to your advantage. All right. That's a 1 hour webinar in 5 minutes right there. We just did it for you.
Well done. That was great effort. Fantastic. Yeah, we've got another question coming in now through Zoom from Tavia in regards, it says, in the FOH capture plus broadcast plus post format, which obviously is a reference to one of your slides, what's the rationale for sending the stream mix back to the main console instead of sending it straight to the stream mixer to the streaming platform?
In that situation, I was going on the premise that the only audio interface that is connected to that second Pro Tools system, actually I shouldn't say that, the audio interface that is connected to that second Pro Tools system is the VENUE console. It's the S6L. Remember, the S1 or the S4 or the S6 is only a controller at that point. It has no audio outputs on it. So you've got to output audio to the audio interface that the Pro Tools system is connected to, and that's the S6L. You follow me there? I hope you do.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's one of those things that's really counterintuitive when you first see it. It's like, why the hell am I having to do this back through the S6L? It's the audio interface for the Pro Tools system. So you have to do it back through there, right?
that's right. On the playback engine, it says E3L system. There's no other way to get audio in and out of your laptop, is there?
Right. Right. So at that point, you got to get it back out of the S6L in whatever format you want and send it over to that streaming computer and let it go. It's really just a pass through. That's all it is. It doesn't have to do anything other than route back from Pro Tools to the S6L channels, and then out you go. I would bring it right in direct to a pair of channels and right back out. No more latency, no more nothing, just in and out.
Fantastic, thanks. And Jeffrey's got a very interesting question, which, looking at it, I'm not sure we may have a solution for him. It might be something that might be happening in the future because of obviously lots of people working in remote locations. But Jeffrey has a question in regards to they have large bands playing in remote rooms too far away for actual running, venue internal infrastructure. What solutions or what kind of, what could they do to address to help dealing with having multiple people in multiple locations coming back to a single location? Very difficult question.
I want to make sure I understand that, right? So I'm going to guess these distances are outdistancing copper. Is that the idea?
I would say so. He says, to clarify, the rooms are so remote that we cannot run venue internal infrastructure, i.e. AVB, but rather has to go through WAN.
Well, I would say this to you for one thing. With AVB fiber, we can go up to 10 kilometers away. So I would suggest that maybe readdress your concept of we can't get to it with the standard AVB IO. So I'm going to maybe wait and see if he responds to that, because that would be the first solution, obviously, is to get to fiber at some point and, address fiber, between the locations if you can do it. If you can't do that, if there can't be any physical connection between it, then you're almost, I'm not sure what you do there. I certainly wouldn't trust Wi-Fi to be able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be a challenge. Definitely, I think a lot of his questions are in regards to lots of like stream latency and delayed monitoring. He just commented again saying the main struggle I feel is to monitor sound quality post-stream. It's really difficult for a live situation because of the stream latency and relaying this delayed monitoring.
Yeah, if you're actually trying to monitor post-stream and perform to it, no chance to do that right now. Because the streaming services are going to be so latent compared to what you're doing. But if you're just trying to monitor, post console, et cetera, in those situations, if you're performing to it, you don't want to be listening to the post stream anyway. But if you're just mixing for stream, or just rebalancing, re-optimizing for stream, then you certainly want to be able to listen to post stream and see what's happening, what that streaming service is actually doing to your audio, and hopefully make some adjustments accordingly. You might need to back off dynamically a little bit to get out of their limiting a little bit, because they're going to have some pretty strong limiting in place to hit their LUFS target, right? So you really just got to do that balance that we always do of, is it loud enough versus is it just crushing my mix to get it to that volume? You know, there's always that balance of that where we, you know, we don't really want to sacrifice dynamic range, or I should say sacrifice sound quality in order to hit their LUFS target. You know, that's the bummer that we run into. So I hope that answered his questions.
Yeah, that was a lot. Thank you for that. I've only got one more question left from Stephen.
That's
And
good.
it's-
I only got one more answer left.
I think this will be the last one. Okay, Stephen's. I think this might be a really, really easy one too, because Stephen's asking. He's asking about using groups instead of DCAs. I'm assuming he means
VCAs, I'm guessing.
What's your reasons for using groups instead of DCAs to apply processing on the group? Well, I think that.
Well, for one, I mean, understand the difference between DCA, VCA. It's interchangeable. Okay, one is just voltage controlled amplifier. One is just digitally controlled amplifier. But understand, with a VCA or a DCA, the audio does not pass through that group, right? It is strictly a control group. So you have no way of creating a stem with a VCA. It has to be an audio subgroup to be able to do that, right? Where you're going to collect all the drums and the reverbs and everything into one audio subgroup, probably stereo, and send that on to the remix, right? So I've done tons of webinars. Look for my series on called The Lab. There's a couple in there. I think there are actually even some venue webinars on the Avid site talking about the differences between VCAs and grouping, and especially how it affects gain structure, or how it can positively affect gain structure. So I would encourage you to go dig one of those up and look for them and review it to clearly understand the difference between DCA, VCA, and audio subgroup, because they are very, very different things and can achieve very different results with them.
Thank you so much. That's all the questions we had, so really appreciate that one.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad we had enough time for all the questions and answers. I mean, that's really, really great. So we'll wrap it up from there, I guess, right, Drew? Are we all done?
Yeah, I think we're all done. Thank you so much for your time, Rob. We really appreciate it. You know, you've, like you said, you've done so many webinars this week. It must be,
Yeah, I know.
must be 8 o'clock for you.
I'm overexposed right now, man. I'm overexposed in the world. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to these webinars. We're going to keep them going. We're just going to keep bringing out these webinars till we don't have anything to talk about, which will be never. So we're just going to keep them going. Thank you very much for coming by. I hope you got some good out of this. Get out there and make some good audio for the world, and we'll catch you guys on the next Avid Live Sound webinar. We'll see you guys. Bye-bye.